Hi, Calvin and Pam.
Hello,
It is
Sheena.
such a pleasure to be here with you guys today. First and foremost, congratulations on being the 2022 Wisdom Keepers. That is very exciting. So you two seem to actually have quite a bit in common with being natives here in Syracuse, right? So both of you also have education in common. So what made you feel like education was important, and what does education mean to you? Let's start with you, Calvin.
Education is so important for me, and the backdrop I'll paint is my dad was a first generation immigrant here. They both stressed how important education was because they didn't have a lot of optionality in terms of employment options. It really started with my parents, the importance of education, how education will knock down any door. And as a family, we have proven that to be true. My family was a family of tax eaters, and education allowed us to become a family of taxpayers. So.
Wow. Okay. Pam?
Yeah, so for me, my father was a factory worker and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I can't explain why I was interested in going to college, but I was the only person among my siblings to earn a bachelor's degree. But I also think education is so much more beyond the traditional and/or college education. I think when I look at what we do at Leadership Greater Syracuse, it's about learning and growing and being exposed. And education is lifelong, and while you can learn a lot from textbooks and you can learn a lot from amazing professors, it's what you do during your life and all those experiences and how you share what you have learned with others. So education for me is beyond the textbooks. It's a little bit more also about taking in new information, trying to understand it yourself, and then sharing it with others so that you can maybe inspire others and always encourage people to grow.
So traditional, non-traditional, all of it is great, right? And all of it adds to how you both impact the community. How do you see the community? What made you decide to give back to the community?
The county of Onondaga, the city of Syracuse, has been a great love for me, and a great love in terms of almost a parental relationship. The city of Syracuse raised me, fed me, educated me, embraced me, and also broke my heart on occasion. And specifically, I think, why did we build that baseball stadium there instead of downtown? But that's another story. And it has been so good to me coming from very, very humble beginnings, living in public housing, and when I was growing up, I aspired to be a maintenance worker, and nothing wrong with that. Again, honorable profession. The reason I aspired to do that was because that's all I saw who looked like me growing up, and having opportunities present themselves to me. So being a regional president of a bank, that's not something I ever saw in my future. But having the city of Syracuse expose me to so many opportunities and be so good to me, I look at Sheena, what you do. There was a Sheena Solomon for me back in the 70s. There was a Pam Brunet for me back in the 70s. And what you two do is so important. Someday multiple people are gonna tap you on your shoulder and say, thank you. Well, I had you there for me, and it allowed me to see much more that what I can be. So, the city has just been really generous to me in so many ways, and it would be really selfish for me to take all those gifts I received and just go home. My mother was very active in the community, so I saw that growing up, but I owe so much to this place that I will always be involved, always look to give back the gifts that I receive until the day they put me 6 feet under.
Well, that's a tough one to follow.
Right.
And I think for me, why I continue to stay here or give back in the way that I do is it's evolved, and it's really appreciation. So I think being raised here, I didn't know how great it was because I had never been anywhere else. So my frame of reference was, and I'm kind of hardwired to be positive. So, but my first job out of college, I worked for Dairy Lee Milk Cooperative, and I interviewed and wrote a magazine for dairy farmers, and they helped me get an appreciation for upstate New York, central New York. And they also taught me you got to like what you do. So those were important lessons. And I think because of that job, I started to really appreciate all that Central New York has, rural, urban. And as my career progressed, it was really about people and people investing in me and or watching what happens when people invest in each other. And I want to be a part of that, right? So I want to help people grow and learn and make our community even better. I mean, our community is not without trouble, but I think one person can make a difference if they are knowledgeable and connected. For me, it's about, I love living here because I think this is the size of a community where one person can really do something pretty remarkable if they set their mind to it and if they can get connected in the right places and spaces.
So both of you are talking about paying it forward, right? What does it look like to give back, that you've received so much, that paying it forward is really important to you? So tell me about that one person in your life, or maybe that two people in your life that really inspired you to be like, you know what, I'm definitely gonna pay it forward. Who was that person in the 70s that you were talking about, Calvin, that really inspired you to be who you are today?
So, you know, that there are multiple people, and you've asked for one or two, so I won't give you a whole list. But I'd be remiss not to mention my mother. She saw something in me that, you know, I didn't even see in myself at that time. She had come home from work one day. I was probably 8 or 9, and I was making some spaghetti, and she said, "You're gonna always be okay." And you know, 50 plus years later, that still resonates. I remember her saying that to me like it happened 2 seconds ago. An older brother who was very much a role model for me. I would have walked over a cliff if he would have said to me. He was that influential. And then there was a gentleman who hired me, my first job. My brother and I used to go, my brother was my best friend, and he would buy the newspaper every single day, and I would always go with him. And there was a store right on Warren Street, and the gentleman, was 12, he said, "When you turn 16, I'm gonna hire you." And this was his family's business, and he had me working as cash register, and he said to me, "What are you gonna do when you graduate from high school?" I said, "Work here." He said, "No, I'm gonna fire you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're college material." He said, you're a diamond, you're rough around the edges, but you're a diamond." College was always impressed, but I had a job, I was gonna work that job, but he really pushed me to go. Again, people seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself.
How about you, Pam?
So I was thinking about Cal's answer about parents, and I think it really does happen at home quite a bit. And I remember wanting to go to college because my peers in high school were going to college, and my parents were unfamiliar with how do you fill out the application. And I distinctly remember my mom saying, "We'll figure this out. We'll figure this out." And she didn't know what she was doing, but it was, and I think that mentality of "we will figure this out" is a huge learning lesson for all of us. Because things may not turn out the way we think they're gonna, but we can always figure something out. You know, there's always a path, there's always a way. And then when I worked at Bristol Myers Squibb most of my career, there was a plant manager who everybody followed. And I remember when I was working with Ken Doria, who was the plant manager at Bristol Myers Squibb, we all felt like we were in the same boat rowing forward, and it was a feeling. And I remember that's how the leader I want to be. I want all of us to be in this together and all going in the same direction. And one of the things he did on a regular basis, we all wore beautiful jackets and ties and suits like Cal has on, and he had a pin that he put on his collar every day, and the pin said attitude. And he said, "Pam, I can't control my aptitude, but I can control my attitude." And that was a really powerful thing to learn because it's true. You know, we're all teachable. We can all learn. And I firmly believe that people don't get out of bed every day to make a mistake or to offend someone. Most people, we get out of bed to work hard and to be kind. And, you know, we have to consciously do that. And having the right attitude, I think, takes you far.
Yeah, I've read a book that said positive leadership. And the first sentence in it was, it's not always easy to be positive. right? So you both remind me of the Be Positive initiative through Focus Greater Syracuse, right? And how positive you guys are in the community and how you implement that in your work. So if you could advise someone today in your leadership position, what does that look like for you? What advice would you give the next leader, right? Because being a good leader means you're developing future leaders, right? Because you're not always going to be where you are. So what does that look like for you? What advice would you give future leadership?
The advice I would give is, we talk about being positive, be adventurous. Look to learn as much as you can. Be a lifetime learner. To surround yourself around folks who know things that you don't know, and to be open to different experiences. I would also advise that look for opportunities to get on the bus and to get on the bus. So there are a ton of initiatives, and you two are great examples. Sheena, you've got the Future Leaders Initiative. Pam, you have a cohort of 50 people every year where you're creating future leaders. To get on the bus, and sometimes when they're on the bus, look to drive it, and have someone like myself sit back, and if you need my help, just raise your hand and I'll help you navigate. But for the most part, sit back and let them drive the bus and get that experience.
I think he's absolutely right, and I think advice I would have is really on the empowerment side of things. Like, know that you can do it, and it may turn out differently than you ever imagined, and take advantage of those around you. Look for people who are role modeling, who you may look up to, and take note about what kind of leader you want to be or what kind of person you want to be. So my advice is to know that you're driving your own bus too. Like, you're in charge of your life, right? So what kind of life do you want to live? And be conscious about how you go about your life, and how you treat others around you. Always be kind, and always see that other people have gifts that you don't have. We talk a lot at LGS about everyone brings their own gift to the table. So true. And if you can embrace, maybe you're having a tough time with someone, lean into that and say, what can I learn from that person? I think that's pretty powerful. And Sheena, we learned something pretty profound together, and she knows what I'm going to say. Last year, with our program that we did with Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders, we had a speaker who said, listen with the intent to be influenced. If we listen with the intention to be influenced, imagine what that could mean. There's a lot of growth there, and I think we all would be open to doing things differently and thinking differently. That doesn't mean we're going to change our mind, but if we approach a situation that we could be influenced, we're open to that. I think that's really good advice that we shared last year.
So the city of Syracuse is very lucky to have both of you as leaders in our community. And I want to personally thank you for your service, and again, congratulate you on being the Wisdom Keepers of 2022. So before we close, I'm just going to ask you both for one word, okay? One word, right? When you received the notification that you were being honored as the awardee for the Wisdom Keepers of 2022, what was the first thing that came to mind?
Few things came to mind, Sheena, but I think the one that immediately comes up is I was flattered. And just knowing who my predecessors were, folks who've won this award, to even be considered was something I felt very honored, but really flattered to be a part of that. It's something that now makes me redouble my efforts to ensure that I'm doing the right thing, but also inspiring others to do it as well.
So humbled was the word that came to me first, and that's probably because of my complete respect, adoration, love for Chucky Holstein. She as a human being has meant so much to me and changed my life in 1998 when I went through Leadership Greater Syracuse, and the fact that she founded Leadership Greater Syracuse in her 60s. She's an amazing person, and she was honored in this award, and I thought it was just humbling, because I too looked at others, Bill Sanford and others who are on this roster, and I thought, me? Like, really? This is the former Pam Dean of North Syracuse, who was just me, and wow, what an honor. It's truly humbling.
Well, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Because a great leader never expects to be honored. You know why? Because you don't do the things that you do to be honored. You do them because they're the right thing to do, right? So thank you both again, and
Thanks,
congratulations.
Sheena. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheena.